The curtains in the front window moved on a Tuesday afternoon in the spring of 1979. That small thing, a hand drawing back a curtain, a figure stepping away from the glass, was how Ruth Calloway first saw him. The new neighbor. The man who had moved into the house at 114 Birchfield Lane, just 42 feet from her own front door, 9 months after her daughter, Donna, had been found in the creek bed at the edge of the Calloway property. He introduced himself to Ruth's husband on a Saturday morning, shook his hand at the mailbox, told them he had family in the county, said he liked the quiet out here. And for 7 years, he would live there. He would wave from his driveway. He would borrow a rake. He would light fireworks on the 4th of July, while Ruth stood at her kitchen window and stared at the yard where Donna used to run. His name was Gerald Allen Pruitt. He was 26 years old when Donna Calloway was murdered. He had known her. He had seen her that evening. And for 46 years, nobody could prove it. This is the story of Donna Calloway, of Linden County, Missouri, and of the cold case investigation that would finally, in the winter of 2024, put Gerald Pruitt's name on a piece of paper that would follow him for the rest of his life. But to understand what justice meant when it finally arrived, you first have to understand what was lost. Linden County in 1978 was the kind of place where people left their storm doors unlocked and considered it a matter of pride. It sat in the southwest corner of Missouri, about 40 miles outside of Joplin, and it was the kind of county where everybody's grandfather had farmed the same land his grandfather had farmed before him, where the grain elevator was the tallest building in town, and where the biggest news of most years was the high school football team's record. The fall of 1978 had been warm and gold. The creek beds still had water in them from the August rains, and the cottonwood trees along Route 7 had turned the color of pennies. It was the kind of October that made people remember why they stayed in places like Linden County instead of leaving for Kansas City or Springfield, the way their children kept suggesting. Donna Calloway was 23 years old that fall. She had worked as a licensed practical nurse at the Linden County Medical Center for 2 years, picking up double shifts on weekends so she could send money home to her mother after her father's back surgery had taken him off the harvest crew. She drove a 1974 Buick Skylark the color of dried mustard, and she kept a St. Christopher medal on the rearview mirror that her grandmother had given her at confirmation. She had a laugh that her coworkers described, years later and still smiling, as the kind that filled up a break room. She was saving money for a nursing degree program in Springfield. She had applied. She had been accepted. She was supposed to start in January. She sang in the choir at Calvary Baptist. She coached the junior girls' 4-H chapter in the summer. She had a cat named Herschel and a vegetable garden that her mother still tended, years later, out of a habit she couldn't explain and didn't try to. Records show that on the evening of October 11, 1978, Donna Calloway finished a late shift at the medical center, clocked out at 8:14 p.m., and stopped at Hatcher's General Store on Route 7 to buy a carton of milk and a box of crackers. The store's owner, Earl Hatcher, told investigators she seemed fine. "Tired," he said. "Just tired." She pulled out of the Hatcher's lot at approximately 8:40 p.m. Her Buick Skylark was found the following morning at the side of Birchfield Lane, 4/10 of a mile from the Calloway family home. Engine off, driver's door closed. That was the last ordinary night anyone in Linden County would spend without thinking about Donna Calloway. Earl Hatcher called it in when he drove past the car at 6:15 in the morning on October 12th. He recognized the mustard yellow, recognized the St. Christopher medal through the glass. He pulled over, looked inside. Nothing disturbed, nothing left behind except a paper bag on the passenger seat with the milk and crackers inside, still sealed. He called the county sheriff from a payphone at the grain elevator half a mile down the road. Deputy Merle Anston arrived at 6:44 a.m. By 7:30, Ruth Calloway had been notified. By 8:00, the Linden County Sheriff's Department had called in mutual aid from 2 neighboring counties and organized a search party of 31 volunteers. By noon, that number was over 200. The National Guard provided 2 horses. A pastor from Calvary Baptist organized a prayer chain that ran continuously on the phone lines for 3 days. Donna was found on the morning of October 14th. She was at the edge of Becker's Creek, in the stand of scrub oak that bordered the Calloway property's eastern fence line. She was 400 yards from the house she had grown up in. The cause of death, the medical examiner would confirm, was manual strangulation. There was no evidence she had been moved. The location was where she had died. Investigators found 2 things at the scene that they documented carefully. The first was a tire track impression in the soft mud near the creek bank, a partial, compromised by 2 days of searchers moving through the area, but photographed and recorded. The second was a single work glove, left-handed, brown leather, size large, caught in the scrub oak 10 feet from where Donna was found. The glove had no distinguishing marks. It was a common work glove sold at every feed store and hardware outlet in a 5-county area. The tire track impression was consistent with a half-ton pickup truck. Half the county drove half-ton pickup trucks. Detective Warren Isles of the Linden County Sheriff's Department took over the lead investigation. He was 34 years old. He had been with the department for 9 years. He later told a reporter that the morning he stood at that creek bank and looked at the trampled ground around Donna Calloway, he knew 2 things: that somebody who knew this land had done this, and that proving it was going to be the hardest thing he had ever tried to do. He was right on both counts. The canvass of Birchfield Lane and the surrounding roads produced 14 witness statements. None placed Donna's car at the scene before 9:00 p.m. One neighbor, a Mrs. harbored at 108 Birchfield, reported hearing a pickup truck on the road sometime between 9 and 10, moving slowly, engine running rough. She hadn't looked out. She thought it was a deer hunter checking his line. Nobody had seen anything. Donna Calloway was 23 years old. And then the investigation began. Detective Isles worked the case with a methodical patience that people who knew him said was just his personality, applied to everything he did. He started where the evidence pointed and followed it until it stopped. The primary suspect in the early weeks was a man named Dale Hutchins, Donna's ex-boyfriend, whom she had broken off a relationship with in the spring of 1978. Hutchins had a temper that was locally known and documented. He drove a half-ton Ford pickup, dark green. He had no alibi for the evening of October 11th that held up past 8 p.m. He told investigators he'd been home alone. Isles pursued Hutchins for 6 months. The problem was the physical evidence. A hair sample taken from Hutchins did not match anything collected at the scene. His tires were the wrong tread pattern for the impression at the creek bank, and a polygraph, administered voluntarily, which Hutchins agreed to without hesitation, came back inconclusive, but not indicative of deception. Isles let Hutchins go. Not cleared, not named, just let go. The second line of investigation led to a man named Roy Picard, a seasonal farmhand who had worked the Calloway property the previous summer and who had left the county abruptly in the week following Donna's disappearance. Investigators tracked Picard to Oklahoma. He had a prior conviction in Kansas for assault. He had no alibi for October 11th either. But Picard had no known connection to Birchfield Lane. No truck. He had been seen, verifiably, at a bar in Carthage at 9:30 p.m. on the night in question. A bartender remembered him. 2 other patrons confirmed it. Picard was eliminated. By the spring of 1979, Detective Isles had conducted 87 formal interviews, followed 23 separate leads, and submitted the brown leather work glove to the state crime lab twice. Both times it came back with insufficient material for further analysis with the technology available. The case was not closed. Isles refused to close it. But it was, in the language investigators use, cooling. The calls slowed down. The tips grew further apart. Meanwhile, the Calloway family was living in a specific kind of silence that doesn't have a name. Ruth Calloway went back to work at the church auxiliary. Thomas Calloway sold 40 acres of the east property, the part that bordered Becker's Creek, to a neighboring farmer because he could not look at it anymore. Donna's younger sister Carol moved to Kansas City in 1980 and did not come back for 3 years. And sometime in the late winter of 1979, a man named Gerald Allen Pruitt moved into the house at 1114 Birchfield Lane. He told people he was a contract welder. He worked out of county. He was quiet. He kept his yard neat. He brought Ruth Calloway a pie at Christmas, 1981, and she thanked him at the door and stood there for a long moment after she closed it, unable to explain why she felt cold. She would explain it later. By 1985, Gerald Pruitt had left Birchfield Lane. He sold the house in July of that year and moved north to a small city in Iowa, according to the forwarding address he left with the post office. Nobody in Linden County marked his leaving. Nobody thought to. By 1990, 12 years had passed since Donna Calloway was murdered. Warren Isles had made detective sergeant. He kept the case file in a banker's box in his office, not the storage annex. When new deputies came through, he told them the story of the glove and the tire track and the 87 interviews, not as a lecture, but as a reminder of what unsolved meant. By 1997, the Calloway farmhouse had been sold. Ruth Calloway had moved to a smaller place in town. She kept Donna's nursing school acceptance letter in an envelope in her Bible. She looked at it every year on October 11th. She died in 2009, having never received an answer. Carol Calloway, Donna's younger sister, the one who had moved to Kansas City, became the keeper of the case after their mother died. She wrote to the Linden County Sheriff's Department every 2 years. Every 2 years, someone wrote back telling her the file remained open and was reviewed periodically. She taped each letter to the inside of a kitchen cabinet door. When a journalist photographed that cabinet in 2024, there were 11 letters. Warren Isles retired in 2003. He took the banker's box home with him. His wife, who understood, let him keep it in the study. There is a specific grief that belongs to the families of the unsolved. It is different from the grief of the resolved. It has no floor. It keeps going down. For Carol Calloway, and for everyone who had loved Donna, the years did not close anything. They just accumulated. If you've stayed with this case this long, you understand what that kind of waiting costs. Every case on this channel represents weeks of research, digging through records, verifying timelines, and reconstructing lives that deserve to be remembered fully. If you want us to keep uncovering the truth behind stories like this one, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Drop a comment and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Your support is what makes this possible. Now, let's get back to Donna. The case had been cold for 44 years when a forensic investigator named Patricia Voss, working a contract review of Linden County's unresolved homicide files, pulled a brown leather work glove out of an evidence bag, and made a phone call that changed everything. The Missouri State Highway Patrol's cold case unit had quietly begun a systematic review of physical evidence from unsolved homicides predating 1990 in 2021. The initiative was unglamorous work, cataloging, photographing, determining what biological material existed and whether it was still viable after decades in evidence storage. Patricia Voss, a forensic specialist contracted to the unit, had been working the Linden County evidence boxes for 3 weeks when she got to case number 78-1042. The brown leather work glove had been stored in a sealed paper bag inside a sealed cardboard evidence box since 1979. Paper bags, as it turned out, were exactly right, better than plastic for long-term biological preservation, because they allow moisture to escape rather than trap it. The glove had been sealed by Detective Isles himself. Voss documented it, photographed it, sent a swab for processing. She later said in an interview that she didn't think much of it at the time. She was processing dozens of items from dozens of cases. She moved on. 6 weeks later, her phone rang. The swab had produced a usable male DNA profile, not a partial. A full profile, extracted from skin cells deposited on the interior lining of the glove, the cells left behind when someone pulls a glove off by the fingertips. 44 years old, that DNA. Perfectly preserved. The profile was uploaded to CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System, the National Law Enforcement Database of Genetic Profiles, and cross-referenced. No match. Then it was submitted to a forensic genealogy lab, where analysts used a method called investigative genetic genealogy, uploading crime scene DNA to public ancestry databases, and tracing the network of genetic relatives backward toward the unknown contributor. The same process that ordinary people use to find long-lost cousins was being used, quietly and legally, to find a killer. It took 11 weeks. The genetic network converged on a family in southwest Missouri. The analysts built a family tree. They narrowed the field. They requested voluntary DNA samples from relatives in the target line, samples taken from discarded material, coffee cups, envelopes, under legal authority. On a Thursday morning in November 2023, a DNA profile from one of those samples returned a match to the profile from the glove. The name on that sample was Gerald Allen Pruitt. He was 71 years old. He was living in a suburb of Des Moines. He had a daughter. He coached a youth soccer team on weekends. The Missouri State Highway Patrol reached out to Linden County. The Linden County Sheriff's Department called Carol Calloway that afternoon. She was at work. She stepped outside to take the call. She sat down on the curb in the parking lot and stayed there for a long time. Investigators had a name. Now they needed a case. Gerald Pruitt had, by every outward measure, lived a clean life. He had worked steadily, welding, later pipe fitting, moving between Iowa and Illinois over the years. He had married in 1986, divorced in 1994, remarried in 2001. He had 2 adult children, and as of 2023, 3 grandchildren. His neighbors in Des Moines described him as friendly. Private, but friendly. He drove a clean truck. He kept his driveway shoveled in the winter. What he had never done was return to Linden County. Not once in 45 years. People who had known him there barely remembered him. He had lived on Birchfield Lane for 6 years and left almost no impression. Almost, because when investigators went back to the 1978 case file, back to Warren Iles's 87 interview reports, they found something that had been there the whole time, recorded and filed, and never connected. A statement from a man named Bobby Trent, a farmhand who had worked a property off Route 7 in October 1978. Trent had told investigators he'd seen a pickup truck parked on the shoulder of Birchfield Lane on the evening of October 11th. Dark-colored. Older model. He'd noted it because it was parked at an odd angle and the engine was running. Trent had not known the name of the truck's owner. He'd offered to look at photos if they had any. The photos were never shown to him. The lead had not been followed. Bobby Trent was located in 2024 in a retirement community outside Springfield. He was 83 years old. He remembered the truck. He was shown a photo array. He could not make an identification. Too many years had passed. But he confirmed what he'd told Isles in 1978. He'd seen it. In March 2024, Gerald Pruitt was arrested at his home in Des Moines by Iowa law enforcement, executing a warrant issued by Linden County Circuit Court. His daughter was on the front lawn when the patrol cars pulled up. He did not run. He did not speak. He looked at the officers for a moment, and then he looked at his daughter. And then he looked away. The arrest warrant charged him with first-degree murder in the death of Donna Calloway, October 11, 1978, in Linden County, Missouri. The news arrived the way news always arrived in small places, person to person, phone call to phone call, across dinner tables and in church parking lots. People who had been children in 1978 called their parents. Parents called each other. In the old Calvary Baptist congregation, two women who had sung in choir with Donna sat together in one of their kitchens and didn't say much at all. Carol Calloway released a statement through the Linden County Sheriff's Department. It said, "We always believed someone knew what happened. We never stopped believing. My mother never stopped. I want her to know we got there." Pruitt was extradited to Missouri and formally arraigned in April 2024. He entered a plea of not guilty. Pretrial proceedings are ongoing as of the filing of this case summary. The DINA evidence from the work glove is central to the prosecution's case. There is a photograph of Donna Calloway that Carol keeps on her phone now. It was taken at the Linden County Fair in the summer of 1977, a year and some months before everything stopped. Donna is laughing at something outside the frame. She's holding a paper cup of lemonade. Her hair is loose. She looks like someone who has nowhere to be and no reason to hurry. She was 22 in that photograph. She had a cat named Herschel. She had been accepted to nursing school. She checked in on her parents every Sunday, drove out to the farm even when the roads were bad, sat at the kitchen table with her mother and talked about nothing and everything the way people do when they don't know those conversations are numbered. She deserved to grow old. What happened to Donna Calloway was not a mystery that was too complicated to solve. The evidence was there. It had been stored in a paper bag in a cardboard box for 44 years. The technology that eventually named her killer existed and was applied, not by chance, but because someone decided these files deserved another look, because a forensic specialist took her job seriously, and because a detective named Warren Isles, back in 1978, had sealed that evidence correctly and refused to let the case be archived into nothing. Warren Isles died in 2017. He did not live to see this. What he left behind was a box, and the box held the answer. Think about that the next time someone tells you cold cases are cold for a reason. There are questions this case leaves open that are worth sitting with. Does DNA genealogy change your sense of what privacy means when it can reach back 46 years and name someone from a glove? What does it mean that a man spent 6 years living next to the family of the person he killed, and nothing in anyone's behavior, in all those years, gave him away? And when justice finally arrives after nearly half a century, when Ruth Calloway is already gone, When the community that knew Donna has largely scattered and aged, does it still count as justice? Should it? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. Justice came for Donna Calloway after 46 years. It came from a paper bag, a sealed box, and a forensic specialist who didn't skip the old files. Stories like hers are why this work matters. If you believe truth is worth pursuing no matter how long it takes, subscribe so you don't miss the next case. More solved cold cases are linked in the description. Thank you for watching.